Hello, everybody. I would like to talk a little bit about how I got my amazing ball python, Tina. She's an adorable sweetheart of a snake. I've had her for about 2 months, just over 2 months. She was a Craigslist adoption, and at the time I picked her up, I didn't even want a ball python. I had just gotten my third snake, currently my third snake, my boa constrictor Barnabas. And I was surfing the Craigslist classified ads, looking in the pet section for any sort of gear that might come in handy for my animals. And I saw an ad on Craigslist. Her previous owners lived in an apartment complex that didn't allow snakes, and they found out about her and gave the ultimatum that either the snake goes or you go. And so they posted an ad on Craigslist. And I saw this, and at the time, I wasn't planning on getting a snake, but I asked them about it, and I just didn't like the idea of this snake going to somebody that wouldn't care for it, because there's a lot of impulse buys on Craigslist, and granted, this was an impulse buy, but I knew I was going to take really good care of her. And I was curious about a couple things. They were selling her for $30, but if you paid $50, you also got her 55-gallon tank and all the gear she came up with, so that was a bargain. But the one thing is, the advertisement said the tank didn't have a lid. I was curious about this. So I decided to get the snake, messaged the owner, we came up with a date and time, and the next day I went out and I picked Tina up, and she wasn't in bad condition. Here in Ohio, especially when the weather starts getting cold and our apartment complexes start turning to heat up, the air gets really, really dry, and she was being kept on Aspen, so I could tell she was a little dehydrated, like her eyes were a little crackly, I guess you could say. If you've ever seen a snake that's a little bit dehydrated, you'll know what I'm talking about. But other than that, she was in full health. She was a little bit heavy, so she was definitely well fed. And sure enough, when I picked her up and got the tank, there was no lid. And I have so many questions about that. I want to know how you keep a snake in a tank without a lid. The owner said she was saving up for a lid, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just really curious about that. And one of the other interesting things about the advertisement was they were very specific in the advertisement, and then when I was messaging the owner, and then when I went to pick up the snake, that she only eats live rats. And so I took this as a bit of a challenge, because I believe that as long as your snake has the correct humidity, the correct temperature, and has enough clutter in the tank to feel secure, 9 times out of 10, they'll take frozen thawed pretty readily. So, I went out and I picked up the snake, brought her back home, and then I went out to my local pet shop, and I bought a lid, got some duct tape and some aluminum foil, because tanks are notoriously bad at keeping humidity in. And also I picked up some shredded cypress mulch. I think it's the jungle floor mulch. And I went and put the lid on the tank. I put some aluminum foil on it, shiny side down, to reflect any heat back in the tank, and then I duct taped over it to keep the humidity in. The only part of the tank I didn't cover up is where I was planning on putting a ceramic heat emitting bulb. And I put the cypress mulch in there, and then I also threw a hygrometer that checks the humidity and the temperature in the tank, and made sure all the parameters were up to spec. So I gave her about a week to a week and a half by herself to sort of settle in. She was in my spare bedroom, so there wasn't a lot of foot traffic. The only time I went in there was I'd check on her about once a day, make sure she had clean water. And after about a week or so, I went out. I picked up some frozen mice from my local pet store, which they overcharged on, because pet stores overcharge on everything. And I heated the rat up, made sure, it was about 100 degrees or so. I have a little infrared temperature gun that I use to measure the temperature of everything. It's a really cool, it's almost like a toy to me, but it's a really cool tool that comes in really handy. And I made sure the rat was at about 100 degrees or so, and I wiggled it around with some tongs, and she took it no problem. Since then, I've been feeding her about one small rat every 2 weeks, and she has been eating like clockwork. So, I'm not saying all snakes will eat frozen thawed 100% of the time, but I will say most of them, about 95% of them, will take to it as long as you're meeting their other needs, and give them a little time to settle in. I also feel like a lot of people want to feed their snakes rats, live rats, purely for entertainment, but they feel guilty about it. So what they do is they try to feed frozen thawed, and then once the snake rejects it, they throw their hands up in the air and say, "Oh, I guess my snake is a snake that only eats live." So that way they can tell everybody, "Hey, she only does that. It's not my fault. She won't take frozen thawed." When I just feel like, there's a little bit more they could do to get a snake to eat frozen thawed. I mean, I've had pet rats, I've had pet mice. They're intelligent creatures, and I really don't feel like feeding snakes live rodents is really that enriching. I can enrich my snake by getting my snake to chase the dead rat around the tank. Sometimes I play games with my snakes. But anyways, yeah, as you can see, she eats frozen thawed like a champ in this video. So I've had her for about 2 months now, and since she's in a enclosure that has the proper humidity and temperature, the crinkliness in her eyes has gone away. She shed for me once, and her skin is really shiny, a lot more healthy. And I've gotten her out, and she likes to hang around my neck and explore. And she's just a really good snake, really calm snake. And I hope to use her in educational outreach programs, because I want to show my animals off to little kids and try to do away with some people's fear of snakes. And there's also a lot of myths out there that I don't understand. Like, the whole, if your snake is laying next to you, it's trying to size you up to eat you. That's a bunch of bull spit. But anyways, I want to take my snakes out and show them off to people, and see if I can put a good word out there for them. And yeah, so there's really not much else I have to say. I plan on doing more videos like this, introducing my other snakes and how I sort of got about them. At the time being, I have 7 snakes. I actually just got a new snake a couple days ago, a Mexican tiger rat snake. And again, that's a rescue from one of my coworkers' relatives. Her brother wasn't able to care for the snake any longer, and so was trying to find a new home, and I offered to take him. And he's actually an absolutely beautiful snake. He's about 7 feet long. He's very intense. And right now I have him quarantined, and let him get settled in before I start handling him and trying to feed him. I plan on doing more videos about my animals, how I acquired them, and just their day-to-day lives. If you'd like to see more videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel, like, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. But anyways, have a good day.